and welcome to the MSP Corner webinar. I am your host, Fernando Leon, and today we are joined by Charlie Dino from AcquireTek. Charlie has been in the IT industry for almost 3 decades, and the past 5 years, he has negotiated over 23 acquisitions and integrations. So pretty confident Charlie has the experience we need to hear about if you're looking to sell or merge with another IT firm. So Charlie, thank you for joining us.
Thanks
I'm
for
gonna
having
hand
me.
yeah, no, it's Friday, so thank goodness it's
That's good.
Fridays. But I'm gonna hand control over to you so you can share. I know you have some slides you want to share,
Okay.
but
Sure.
we I've been building up the content on our Facebook groups that you were going to be here to discuss. These guys, they're I don't know what their exit strategy is. Is it 5, 10, 15 years? But they have time if they plan this correctly based on your guidance and your input and your advice, that if you want to build a valuable and attractive MSP, you need to follow some guidelines. And I'm hoping that's what you're going to do today, because, nobody wants to build a business and then just walk away from it. That's not the goal. The goal should be to have an exit strategy, build up a valuable business that is attractive and is following best practices, is in demand in their area. So handing
Well,
it off to you.
absolutely. Well, Fernando, thanks for having me, and appreciate. This is a topic that I enjoy talking about. So it's hopefully we'll get some good information out to the folks here, and if anybody has questions, certainly we can take those at some point as well. So I'm Charlie Dino. Started a firm called AcquireTek 5.5 years ago. I was like probably a lot of you guys. I was did never thought I was going to be a technologist, but I was a former CIO for a company called Recall Records Management. Did 5 years with that, US, Canada. Just so you know, I know what you guys go through. I'll tell you two of my MSP journeys. One is it was internal with Recall. We had 184 locations, US and Canada. I had network, desktop, you name it. I had the support for it. Um, and then I ran our managed services firm from my holding company that I had with two other guys that we're all a part of. It is, in essence, it was called the number four Cloud Services. We sold it last year. I ran it for 18 months while I was running AcquireTek. So there's a little bit of a bridge there today as we talk about M&A best practices in the MSP, managed services provider space. You can see my background here. You can look me up on LinkedIn. This is an old staunchy picture. Sorry, my other picture is probably a little more hip these days. So I've got I did my first 12 years with General Electric, and then I got into IT. I did some IT work at General Electric, but it was more e-business and being a project manager and operations. And then I went straight IT after that with ADP. And my acquisition experience, Fernando, was is we did 23 acquisitions when I was at Recall. And then Iron Mountain asked me and three other people to integrate Recall and Iron Mountain. That's how I started down this M&A path 5.5 years ago. The guys I went into business with, Griffin Global Technologies, great firm. I do a lot with them as well. But they came to me and said, "Hey, what do you think about starting a M&A best practice advisement integration firm?" I said, "You know what? I'm kind of tired of the corporate life, I think. It is nerve-wracking, I'm sure, for all of you out there that are entrepreneurs. And so here we are. So here's what we've done to this point, just so you know, a little bit about AcquireTek. So started in May of 18, got our first deal in July of 18, got lucky from that perspective. And, what do they say? Luck sometimes is just hard work, but got the first deal within 2 months. It kicked us off. We've done over 200 integrations. It's probably north of that now. And then this is some things that we talked about integration wise, but I'm going to flip the script today and talk a little bit more to your audience, Fernando, and to the MSP world, just things I learned as I was going through AcquireTek. And then, like I said, the 18 months that I ran for Cloud. So The first thing we'll talk about, the first topic, keys to selling an MSP, things that they need to know if you're going to sell your MSP, just some things to think about. We'll also look at sell side integration. The reason I tell that and sell side M&A is it'll kind of play to things you could be doing to make yourself more attractive. If you didn't, it's okay. We'll talk about it again today on mine and Fernando's podcast. We talked a lot about a real estate analogy and kind of thinking about your business that way is how are you going to get your business attractive enough to sell if that's what your end goal is in your strategies. Current state of the M&A market, I just want to kind of tell you guys what's going on there. I want to show you something we use for due diligence and why due diligence is important and how you guys could get involved in it as well. I always look to partner with people, but I'll show you what we do there and why it's important in the M&A space. So here's our first thing. So first thing, let's get it out of the way. Fernando and I have talked a lot about it. He's probably tired of hearing me say it, but EBITDA, so earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization. So why is it king when you're selling your business? So I can tell you guys and girls is, in essence, what happens is I think a lot of people when they're thinking about selling their business, they think revenue, revenue, revenue. Revenue is important. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's scale, but what the buyer market is looking for, whether that's a private equity firm, whether it's another MSP, whether it's a larger IT services firm looking to fold in an MSP underneath them for cloud advantage, whatever it may be, they are going to look at your profit. That's what they're going to look at. And so, why is that important? So, they're interested in profit, as we just said. Why is that important to you? Is because they base their price multiple off your EBITDA or profit, right? So they're looking at your EBITDA, your earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, and amortization, and they're going to look at it and say, okay, that's the number. Here's what I'm going to do from a multiple perspective. Now we'll talk about in a second some cool things for you guys in managed services that you can think about, and if you're not doing them, you maybe could to make yourself a little more attractive if you're going to sell. And then we'll talk about if you wanted to buy as well. And then one last thing I say here is you focus on your profit, right? I mean, I think scale is important, but make sure you focus on your profit for the reasons I just mentioned. But the other thing that you can think about that I put in this slide as well is your advantages, right? I wanted to put in here what's the advantage for your space, what you guys do, which is important in our IT ecosystem, is monthly recurring revenue. It gets a higher multiple on EBITDA price than those that have one-time revenue. And this includes long-term contracts. Fernando and I talked a lot about that. And so I just make a suggestion here, like what we started doing with Four Cloud, we started doing auto renewals. So in our contracts, we wouldn't do anything less than 12 months. And in the 12-month period, it auto renewed. And the language was such, it was great. I mean, you could there was some out clauses, but in essence, what it said was is if we're going well together and everything's good, it just auto renews each year. What that did for us, it was a good thing. And it wasn't something where I think our clients appreciated is I didn't have to come to them every year and go, hey, it's contract time. Let's talk about price. Let's do
Yeah.
it was basically, hey, if you like what we're doing and everything's going well, it'll auto renew at that point. If we want to talk about it before the auto renew, we both have 60 days before to notify the other and start having a 2 month discussion before that auto renews. Why is that important for this discussion? Is my experience has been is when you have long-term contracts and as you guys have recurring revenue each month for the services and then whatever you're getting on top of that for a la carte, it's an attractive piece of the puzzle that buyers are looking for if you're selling. So buying. So let me just talk a little bit before we get to the next slide. So just if you're out there buying, I mean, I think it goes the same way, is for you to make sure that you're thinking about these things that you're buying. If you're going to fold in a smaller MSP, like why are you doing that? Are you doing it for maybe you're getting into a new technology, maybe you're getting into a new region. Those are important. So you might not look at some of these things, but what you can do, and I was just going to mention, flip the script, right? If some of you are out there thinking about buying, which I've talked to a lot of different MSP owners and companies that are thinking about buying in my networking, is think about it the same way. So if you go and look at someone and they didn't get the chance to know Fernando and hear me today, is in essence, if they don't have long term contracts, if they don't have good profit. You can lower your price offer proposal to them if you're out looking for something to add in. So you can flip the script either way. That's why the real estate analogy, I just always like to use it. It's an easy one to think about. Is if you're buying a fixer upper, you obviously would lower the proposal price, and then you would go ahead and put your magic into it to make it better, right? So same thing goes with the business offerings. So next topic, just sell side. So I talk a little bit about the reason I left this in here. I typically talk to my integration audience about this, but same thing goes here. So if you think about, and I'll just make some examples for you guys in the MSP world, but things we just talked about, like if you think about, if you're thinking about selling in the future, those things that you're doing to improve efficiencies, which to me is a win-win, they're going to help your bottom line anyway, your EBITDA, those things are attractive. So think about those things, from an MSP perspective is, it could be operational in essence. It could be, from a standpoint of organizationally, how you organize, if you're centralized versus decentralized. I mean, I know a lot of you probably still do, in-person support. Are you going to do that? Or are you going to be centralized? Things of that nature are things to think about, that give you efficiencies and help your profit bottom line. I'm not saying to take the quality away from your clients. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those. There are those out there. I think from a private equity and investment perspective, they probably won't understand all of them what you do. So don't take away the quality. But what I'm saying to you is look for areas, since you're expert in your own business, where you can make improvements and improve your profitability. And this is some of what we do with clients. We go in and do an assessment, which I'll show you in a second, and how we could partner if you were interested. But we do that for our clients. It's a 3-week engagement. We'll look at the basis of how you do things. Like we'll look at IT service management. We'll look at infrastructure and operations. We'll look at IT security. And what that does, it gives a basis for where do you need to improve. And if you do those improvement steps, you can show that again as you move forward. So just real quick, I wanted to show you something. Just focus over here on how deals are done in 2023. So, two things I wanted to mention here for you is one is I was mentioning to Fernando on our podcast is before you look at these, if you're going to sell, get yourself a sell side agent or broker. And the reason to do that is if you go out on your own, you'll look back and I promise you're going to say, wow, I wish I had somebody representing me. And the reason is they're going to look at different ways to help you and represent you. So there's 3 ways deals are getting done right now. I will tell all of you that we are in a what I would call a buyer's market, not a seller's market. And the reason is the investment flow from banks and investment bankers is not as prevalent as it was in 2022, 2021. You can see the amount of deals done in 2022 up there, 1.1 trillion. I don't think it's going to be that number. However, it's just like the stock market, right? Is when the stock market's down, it's a buying opportunity. When it's up, could be a selling opportunity. What they'll do is these are the 3 ways that they're making it creative. If you did need to sell, let's say that you're near retirement and you're like, I can't wait another 4 or 5 year, whatever the economy's going to do. This is how they do it: seller notes, where they pay a high percentage to increase your debt finance, a buyer seller earnout, which is like a 2 year purchase. So you get, like, if things are better in the 2 years later, you get a better multiple, and then buyer equity into your seller business. So what that means is that you've allowed somebody to buy like 45, 49% of your business, and now they're a partner for you on it. The only other thing I wanted to mention here that I mentioned to Fernando is if you are looking to buy or sell a business, make sure you do quality of earnings. And we'll put that up. I'm sure Fernando, I'll tell him to put it up when we put the recording up. Quality of earnings is if you're going to buy or you're going to sell, just get a you probably already have an accountant, but get a representative CPA firm that does quality of earnings, does it well. And the reason to do that is that's where they're going to focus for the purchase or the sale back on your quality of earnings. So it's something very important to think about while you're thinking about the M&A sell or buy side for your businesses. And then the last couple things I wanted to mention here, I just wanted to tell you guys, being a technologist who got into the M&A game, one thing that's happened since the pandemic that I'm super excited about, and you guys hopefully will take this to heart and those of you that do business this way, I hope you all do, is I've always believed that human resources, human capital is a huge, huge differentiator. I used to call it in Four Cloud when I was running that. I called it our white glove or concierge service, and we did that everywhere. It wasn't an outlier. It was everything we did. There, people are starting on the buy side, the private equity side, to look at human capital technology, which was not the case when I started this 5 years ago. I felt like I was talking on deaf ears sometimes when I went to these events about, why technology is important, why human capital is important. That has become a huge focus for them now over the last couple of years. So it's a good thing for all of you if you're thinking about getting into this space. The only thing I was going to mention to you guys, and then I'll stop Fernando for a discussion with you or questions, is we do something called an IT health assessment. I'm going to bring up a topic if you've not heard it before. It's called due diligence. All that means, and I won't get into a lot of details. You could certainly talk offline if you wanted some advice. But in essence, due diligence is done when you and another party, whether you're selling or buying, have made an agreement to go ahead and start to look at each other's information. So that means they're going to look at your quality of earnings, your EBITDA. They might look at your resources like staff. They might look at different things you have from an operational standpoint, technology wise. And then what they're going to do from that is they're going to say, okay, if I buy this, or if if you're the sell side would do the same thing, is if that happens, then what do I need to do after I'm now owner, or the new owner has it? And why we do this is to me what the we'll do the real estate analogy again. Sorry, Fernando. Is basically it's the picture, and it's now they have like the 3D view of coming in. This is what I do for businesses: is I show, hey, this is the posture they're in right now. Really good buy. Like you're getting something good out of this. Or opposite, I do it for buyers where I say, hey, you know what? They got a lot of stuff you're gonna have to improve. Your price should lower your offer proposal, etc. And we do, just so you guys know, we look at these different things, but our core, I mentioned it earlier, and we could just do three, is IT security, infrastructure, and platform. And then for you guys, I do IT service management. So I look at that as well. And then you can do add-ons if you're looking at businesses, etc. And the only other thing I was going to show you is, let's get off that board. This is what comes out. And it's been impressive for it's been something that's really working well for us. Is we go in, this is interactive, it's not static like this, but we score you based on statistical variables, our best practices that we've done collecting through all these due diligence and M&A. And it says where you stand overall. It also says where we make recommendations, but more importantly, we t-shirt size the recommendations. And even if you came out maybe where you didn't want to be, we start to focus you on the areas you can improve. So I wanted to share that today. We've had a lot of MSPs too want to do this with us, whether it's white label or partner with us for their clients as well. But I wanted to bring it up today, not for that. I'm not here to plug, is I wanted to bring it up in case you're thinking of selling or buying. We do this. It's not expensive. You can reach out to me, but it's a really good way to show whoever it is, whether you have a seller broker or the buyer. It's a good way for us to show them where the position stands at that point. So that is it,
Nice.
Fernando. I don't know if we want to talk, take questions, how you want to play the rest of this, but appreciate you having me, and hopefully the audience here has gotten something out of this. I certainly, that's my contact info on LinkedIn. If you guys need anything, any advice, my advice, just so you guys know, I might be a fool for doing this, is typically pro bono. But if we can do business together as well in some way, shape, fashion, or form, that's great. We're all in business, we're all entrepreneurs. But if you need any advice, I really started doing this. I told Fernando 4 years ago, I do these round tables, and very similar to abbreviated here, but what we just did with you guys in the MSP corner. My passion is to make sure you know what you're getting into. When I got into it at first, I'd go to these different events, and I'm hearing these horror stories from sellers, and I just was like, there's got to be a way to get some of this out there and educate people, because it can be a foreign language. Some of you might know this. You might have done a few of them, and you're like, yeah, man, I've done this. Just so you guys know, and with this, Fernando, promise is I would tell you guys that most folks, and you might be in that majorities, they've not done a transaction. So how would you know all this? We wouldn't expect anybody. Those that have done it a lot, like myself, and there's probably some in the audience, they know some of these things to look at. But it's always good to have somebody doing this on a day in day out. So get yourself a broker or get some advice from someone. Certainly could be me.
Yeah, no, this is some great information. Thanks for sharing and making time to present to the audience because, yeah, I just don't see why somebody would be starting an MSP and just walking away from it. They are, they all should have some type of exit strategy because you want to get a return on your investment. I mean, this
Yep.
is the way I look at it, right? It's like an investment for you. It's your time, it's your money, and you should get something in return. And this type of information is needs to be published because some people just don't know they can just walk away from something and say, "Hey, I can sell this." But they need to understand that those MRR, that MRR is really critical. And I'm happy
Yep.
to say, I'll raise my hand, that we have auto renew in our contracts and our
Good.
MSSP contracts, right? That's important because who wants to go back and renegotiate every year? It's like,
Yeah.
no. So,
Absolutely right.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely right. You're right.
yeah.
You're right, for sure.
Um, I think that one of the questions as an MSP, am hoping that these guys are thinking the same way. Is IT is the network is just is much more than just computer and server and network issues. It's security. So, do you see more value in firms that are delivering a SOC also as part of their package to keep network secure, keep them compliant, because we're in a very different world than where we were five or so years ago, because the threats are daily. It's no longer a this mythical evil type of entity out there. It's like this thing is real. It's there to wreak havoc and have hold customers hostage. It's like they're holding data. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been part of, I think, two or three ransomware cases where we had to come in and save the day because they didn't want to listen to us. And it's you can only throw your hands up in the air and say, hey guys, we've talked about this, but we're here now. Let's move forward. Let's rebuild the network. And some clients are down for days, some are down for weeks, and
Yep.
it's painful. It's painful. So we want to avoid that.
Yep.
And
Totally
so,
agree.
what do you see? Do you see more value in MSPs that have
Yes.
a SOC already as part of their infrastructure?
Yes, absolutely. No, no, 1,000%. So just so you guys know, and I'm just, one thing to think about is, yeah, it's an absolute yes. I know a lot of you in the security space, and I've experienced it. You're still going to get those folks. They think consequential, right? Until it actually happens to them, they don't think about, well, oh, so how does that turn into dollars? So, but what we've been trying to do, the only reason I went back to this, so all of our information security best practices have been looked at by CISOs, former CISOs running firms or CISOs. So I've added that in because we're not an IT security firm. I don't pretend to be one, but I wanted the best information, and we update that. And to your question, Fernando, that's why we did it. Is we wanted to make sure in this space, in the M&A space, that people understood that. Like, hey, and we give examples. I think I gave it to you when we first met, but in this for those out there, and you'll probably laugh because it's simple, but you probably won't be surprised at how many due diligence and these health assessments we do where people don't have disk encryption on their devices still. It just shocks me, but it's the case. And so that's what we do. We say to the people that hire us, we're like, look, this is a not an expensive improvement or solution, but it's a huge risk mitigation. And so we start to look at things that way in the information security or IT security perspective. And I completely agree with you. I think everyone that's selling or buying needs to be thinking about that. But I wanted to give you a reality check. I mean, out in the financial lender and purchase side of it, sometimes we have to bring them along with that and just give examples. Is hey, this is why you want to be very, very cognizant of the IT security side of things. So,
Yeah.
but a
I
thousand
mean,
percent,
well, I can tell you that the SOC margins compared to the MSP margins are much higher than they are.
absolutely,
It's so much
absolutely,
higher,
yep,
and it's low maintenance. It's not like we gotta you gotta have a lot of expertise. You can have the right amount of expertise, but
yep,
not overstaffed like some firms do. But
yep.
yeah, it's a very nice margin that we love that's in place now. So
Completely agree. Completely
yeah,
agree. And yes, it is attractive to buyers for sure.
all right, awesome. That's great to hear. That's great to hear. Well, Charlie, I don't have any questions because we covered quite a bit on the podcast,
We
and
did. It
I'm
was
going to
great.
publish.
I listened to it yesterday to prepare for this.
Oh,
We did have a good conversation. I just want to make
we
sure I
did.
listened to it again. So
Yeah, no, and I'm going to publish this webinar
okay.
on our new next newsletter
Okay.
along with the podcast. I'll include your contact information in
Yeah.
there, and I hope to have you back on the show
Yeah,
where we have a
absolutely.
a large audience because we need to get the word out there. These guys
Yeah,
need to, this is educational. You need to stay educated on this process because it's going to help you in the future. And I don't want these guys to be taken advantage of, whether they're purchasing or they're going to be purchased. They need to get educated on this process because it's important.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I speak your language as a former CIO, so I'm not just an M&A guy. I learned it because I had to learn it from the background told you guys. So I appreciate you, Fernando, and having these conversations. They're always great and getting these messages out. So if anybody wants to stay in contact, please reach out. And I'd love to be on again with you and talk about this and other subjects.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Charlie, I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks everybody for listening.